Well, hi, good afternoon. It's Friday. This is Carrie from KDS Insurance Services. In my ongoing videos to help all my fellow Texans and Houstonians recover from this horrible storm that we experienced almost 2 weeks ago to now, and moving into and continuing through the hurricane season, I've had some questions come up about specialty items. Jewelry is a good one, sporting equipment, camera equipment, collections of things that have limits on your homeowner's insurance. Guns is another really big ticket item. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how those can be insured where you get more coverage than your actual homeowner's policy. So on homeowners policies in the state of Texas, generally there is a limit in your personal property coverage amount for specialty items like guns and jewelry and camera equipment, sporting equipment, video equipment, computers, that sort of thing, where we have a collection of things. So let's just go with jewelry because that's one of the ones that's a big ticket item. Okay, so wedding rings, ladies' jewelry, men's jewelry. In most homeowners policies in the state of Texas, there's a maximum limit that the policy will pay out. And the standard maximum limit is $500. So if you have, let's just say you have a fire and you lose your jewelry, you're going to have, unless you've upped this number, you're going to have a maximum payout from the insurance company of $500. But you got to remember, there's always a deductible. So if you have $500 worth of jewelry, but your deductible is $2,500, you're not going to get a penny from the insurance company. Now, you can increase the amount of your jewelry coverage when you buy a homeowner's policy. You can normally bump it up. In most cases, the maximum they'll allow you to bump it up is $5,000. So you go from $500, which is the minimum, depending on the carrier, of course, and you can bump it generally as high as $5,000. Or you can schedule your jewelry, and this is actually scheduling each individual item, and it becomes an all-risk policy, and you can buy it with no deductible. Now, if you have a big collection of things, whether it's jewelry, golf equipment, camera equipment, antiques, even antique trains, we've actually insured a collection of antique trains before. Sporting equipment, computers is also another area of your policy that has a max amount, unless you actually increase that max amount or you schedule it. And generally speaking, when we schedule these items, we schedule them on a separate policy. It's called a personal articles policy, and it becomes an all-risk policy. So it doesn't matter what happens to it: theft, fire, vandalism, if it is stolen, if it's accidentally flushed down the toilet or falls into the disposal or anything. It's an all-risk, meaning it doesn't matter what happens, it's going to be covered. And generally, there are multiple options. You can either do it without a deductible or a $500 deductible, $1,000, depending on the carrier, depends on how many deductible options they are. So if you have a lot of these things, it's probably worth investigating. Do I want to just cover it and increase the amount on my homeowner's policy? Or do I want to cover these items on a specifically designed, separate schedule policy where I go from being an open policy where there's named perils, or do I want to go to a all-risk policy where it doesn't matter what happens to it? For example, if you're traveling overseas and it's lost, if you insured on a scheduled policy and you have no deductible, it's going to be replaced. If you put it on a schedule and it has a $500 deductible to help offset the premiums, it's going to be replaced minus the $500. So it's important to know, especially in these circumstances, recovering from major hurricanes, do you have the base amount for firearms, jewelry, all these things? Have you increased the amount of coverage on your policy? Or do you have a separate policy? And this might be a really good time to reevaluate, if you've got a lot of these specific type things, whether or not you want to schedule them on an all risk policy, and then decide on what kind of deductible you want depending on what your price comes back at. So I know it's complicated, and this is why I do these videos, because people don't have the kind of training to really be able to look at a policy and say, okay, I understand this. Insurance can be complicated, it can be very confusing, and in the world of claims too, some of these smaller coverages like food spoilage, computers, power outages, these type of smaller coverages generally come into play because you're always going to have a deductible when there's a big claim, right? So you got a roof damage. You also have $1,000 of spoiled food. It's generally when you have these bigger claims that we start to see smaller coverages come into play, where you've lost, because you've lost power for 5 days, you can't keep your food safe, and so therefore you have food spoilage. So it's confusing, and it's very, very important that you work with somebody that can explain these coverages to you, explain how your deductible works, explain what kind of claims processing you have, whether it's a replacement cost or an actual cash value policy. There's just a lot to it, and that's why it's important to work with a licensed, experienced insurance agent that can answer the questions for you and get you the information that you need. Happy Friday, everybody. We are headed towards the weekend. I hope you have a blessed, safe weekend, and I hope you take some time to decompress. Don't forget, you got to do that. You got to take time to decompress and rest and rejuvenate in order to be the very best person that you can be, personally, professionally, and for those in your life that depend on you. Have a blessed weekend. Thanks for watching. This is Carrie from KDS Insurance Services in the Houston area. God bless everyone.